Hey guys, this is a quick high-level overview of the construction of the plant stand, an alternate to the traditional third project of our Morrison tenon picture frame. So this teaches the exact same skill set. We do a wedge through tenon on this one, and then of course a blind tenon on two of them. The only thing different about this is this does introduce a half lap, which of course is an extension of the first picture frame. We're just going vertically versus horizontally. When I asked my classes if they wanted to help me beta test this, I gave them an alternative. I didn't think it was fair to say everyone is doing this. Gave them the choice. Overwhelmingly, 100%, they all wanted to do this one. I think it just is kind of interesting because it's a little bit more of a 3D object than the flat picture frame. Another bonus is I don't think it's really necessary that we even necessarily finish this by sanding. I think that if we just erase the pencil lines, then it's kind of serviceable as is. So we'll save. This is going to add a little bit more time to do this half lap, but we'll save it on sanding and things like that. I will have two versions on the instructor's desk. This is kind of the first version I did that I think all of you saw. All I did really was glue it up, kind of get this sawed and sanded off and nice and cleaned up. And then I will have this break apart version here. This version you could essentially take apart and use to illustrate various examples. Even the half lap will fall apart, as you can see, so you can kind of see how that's going to go. And I think all we need to do is just kind of do it. We'll just do a real quick one. Just real high level. I'm just going to pretend like I'm doing all this stuff. So we're going to cut up our board. We're going to be using that same 36-inch board that we would use for the picture frame. We're just going to cut it up in the 5-inch legs if you're going to be following this model here. And then a 8-inch for rails, a little bit less. I think I do 7 and 7/8. We still want to get a reference face to this because when we are starting to mark out our mortises and our tenons, we want to make sure that's nice and consistent so that this fence is up against our reference face. So if we are off by a smidge, at least we're bringing that inconsistency across all of our pieces and everything will still fit together. So to do that, essentially just bringing all my pieces together, grabbing a pencil, and just scribbling like a double line across all of them, just in parallel to each other. Once we have that, we will want to work on their legs first. These will be the mortises. And we want to measure from the foot of the leg up to the first mortise slot and then the additional inch. And the reason why is because since we're hand cutting all these things, the length is not going to be exact. So we want at least to have this to be a little bit more of a consistency across all four legs and hopefully prevent some rocking. We'll introduce rocking anyway, but we want to minimize that as much as possible right out of the get-go. So to do that, I'll take all these, flip them on in, and I would recommend taking a square, squaring that up, fence nice and tight up against the fence, and then all of them up against that ruler there. Once I'm happy with that, I'll hold it nice and tight and bring in a squeeze clamp and squeeze it tight. From there, I'll take apart my combination square. I will measure up. The dimensions I used for this was 2 5/8, so I'll go 2 5/8, make a tick mark, make an additional inch, and that will be our mortise slot. So I will make a tick mark, reassemble my square. While they're still clamped, I can now score that across, score that across. So 2 of these will be the blind mortises, so they're done. The other 2, they will be the through mortises, so we will want to wrap these around on both pieces, so that we have it on front and back, and we'll do that on both pieces there. The rails we're going to do just like we did on the side pieces of the picture frame. We're going to be measuring from one side to the other. So essentially it's just a simple matter here of measuring 1 inch and then an additional 5 inches. I know that some of you have switched to 3/4 of an inch, which is fine. That will just give you an additional 5 1/4 on that inside measurement. However you want to do it. Of course, these will also need to be wrapped all the way around, as we know. So we'll want to take that, wrap that all the way around, because that's going to be our pins. The only new introduction will be this this half lap. The only thing I figured out, and I think I will do a separate video on this as well. I hope you could see this on camera. Kind of catch the light there a little bit. And what I figured out is if you leave just like a 1/16 of an inch or so on either side, and then kind of hollow out this middle, you can see I'm just taking a 1/2 inch chisel and just kind of like with almost hand pressure, just like chopping that down. And what that will do is make these side pieces, this little bit of side wall here, that's going to be compressible, and that will just compress into the mating surface. And you can see what's happening here. If I could catch that light just right, you can see how it's kind of just scoring into that mating piece, and that's exactly what we want. Once we get that put together, that's exactly how you get that nice tight fit that we're looking for in there. We're going to want to use marking knives, or in our case, X-Acto knives, for doing this. If we're using pencils, especially wood pencils, we're going to be introducing too much slop into this, because we just simply cannot get a pencil lead up into that tight corner there. It's always going to be on the outside, introducing an extra 32nd of an inch or so, and that, I promise you, will be loosey-goosey enough where this thing will just feel like it's just kind of rattling apart. I'll do a separate video on that, so if you haven't done one, that'll be it's actually a favorite part of mine, because it's kind of really satisfying to get that really tight joint in there. The only other thing is, because we're doing all of our mortise and tenons by hand, we're of course going to be introducing a little bit of wobble, even though we have all this consistent. So the little trick that I figured out there is figure out which way it's wobbling, like that. Take one of your blind mortises, and you can see where that is, where the mortise slot is, where I have that scored across, and you can see that I just kind of nibbled out an additional 1/16 of an inch. I would call like a fat 1/16 of an inch, and that will allow us to kind of shift this back and forth a little bit, so we could get some adjustment on there. That is really no different than what we do in 102 with the Festool domino, where on one side we're making the slot a little bit wider, so we have that little bit of wiggle room for getting everything kind of fitted together. So that's it. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.